Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, February 2nd, 2015 City Council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we have Melissa Civils here from the Salvation Army. If you'll lead us in prayer.
Absolutely. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for each and every person who's here for the City Council meeting. We just ask that you would be with our leaders of the city as they make decisions and discuss the things that need to happen tonight. We just ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Melissa. I don't know if you're going to hang out through the whole meeting or not, but okay, perfect. Part of the job responsibility when you do that. Okay, at this time we'll take roll. Shelley, if you'll do that for us.
Albertson. Bueller. Bueller. Danforth.
Here.
Manty absent. Meisenheimer. Riefenberger.
Here.
Roby.
Here.
Solom.
Here.
Tupper.
Here.
Wilkins. Thank you.
And Beth is home with the flu, I believe, just so everybody kind of understands. And we wish her the best and get over that stuff fast. Okay, at this time, I will look for a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Motion by Don, second by Bruce. Is there any questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, the approval of the agenda. I will like to add, under old business, we're going to ask for the mayor's approval to sign an agreement for a Lomar. Is that correct? Perfect. Okay, so, so Sarah, we'll put that under old business. All right, so at this time, I will look for a motion and a second. Motion by Bruce, second by Randy. Any questions, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, application for a new retail on-off sale wine license to Spies Corporation doing business as the Cowboy Country Store number 2 at 509 9th Avenue Southeast. At this time, I will open the public hearing. If there's anybody here that wants to speak in favor of or against this, now's your chance. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Dan, second by Russ. Any questions on this? Just so you all know, this is a new license. This is not an existing license that had anything behind it. It's a brand new license.
Is this not in their current location of Ponchos?
But it does not have a wine license, on-off sale wine. It's 9th Avenue Southeast is down, I don't know. That's down on Highway 81 and 212.
Don't they already have? Is this a different license what they currently have at that location? Is that
Yes.
what this is? Okay.
Yeah, this is a new license. Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4, ordinance number 15-03, amending section 11.0410, regulating prohibited waste at the Watertown Regional Landfill. And then this is going to be a second reading. So at this time, what I'm going to do is look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mr. Riefenberger, second by Al. Okay, Mike, do you want to help us out on this one?
Yes, I recommend deleting these 2 ordinances as the landfill permit limit for total petroleum hydrocarbons in contaminated soil has changed from 100 parts per million to 3,300 parts per million. And since it may change again, and we really don't need we don't want the numerical value in the ordinance, we have to follow the permit and comply with it, so forth. So just for housekeeping purposes, it's easier just to take it out altogether.
Okay, is there any questions for Mike on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Mike. That was easy. Number 5, first reading of ordinance number 15-04, amending the zoning district boundaries by rezoning a portion of Willow Creek Village from R3 multifamily residential district to R1 single-family residential district. This is a first reading, and normally we don't have any discussion, but if you guys have any questions on this, we have Sarah here tonight, and we can answer any questions. What I'm understanding is in the Village Creek, or Willow Creek Village area, there is a gentleman that is purchasing some property and wants to build some single-family homes out there.
So basically, it's just changing developers, so that's why they look at it.
Now, he is changing the absolute look of the facility from an R3, which can have a multi-apartment rentals in there,
Oh, so same
And
same
to
developer,
just-
though?
R1 single-family.
Yes, no.
What's the question?
Same developer as before?
It is not the same developer, no. No, this developer is purchasing the property from the original developer. Okay, any questions on it? Sure.
Actually, I'm sorry, since it is first read. A couple things that, on this one, is we're now taking an R3 area, that's, this whole area's been
Could you put that up there?
rezoned a number of different times, and now we're going to, the last plan we acted on not too long ago, and now we're gonna carve a very, very small piece out of the middle of an R3, and we're gonna stick an R1 area in there. And this, we seem to be just completely contrary to our normal planning standards and practices that we've had when we're doing this. That's one concern. The second concern I have is, there were some, I believe it was in the development lot agreement or within those terms somewhere, where it was asked for and it was given by the city after much consideration, narrower streets and then also sidewalks on one side of the road and not two. I honestly believe that some of those decisions are predicated on the plan that was given to us at that time. This changes that plan. So I think there's got to be some serious consideration about, I think this whole development area again, or at least in part of it, is are we going to be allowing these, in this case, there's 4 lots to be embedded in the middle of an R3 area? And are we going to go back and we're going to relook at those terms that were agreed to now if we choose to do this, because this is now becoming an R1 area. I just have concerns with the way this is being, ultimately in the end, is being developed and the practices that we are putting in place with this development area, so.
I get it, Mike. And Sarah, do you have any comments you want to make on this?
It is a down zone, so it's less impactful to have fewer homes in a certain area. And there's an open area behind it, which will always be open. It's a detention pond. So there is kind of that buffering. It didn't seem out of place. The Plan Commission recommended it.
I have a similar concern to what Mike said, and the second part of that is, I have a feeling we're gonna see 2 or 3 more requests like this before that development's done. And then we get the patchwork, the quilt work, zoning ends up, and that's bothersome.
Also, I just want to point out, I agree with what Mike was saying earlier. I think typically we would use like an R2 buffer if we were going to do something like that. But going to, and I understand you've got the open area, but there are other properties in 3 different directions too. That that's not a real good way to plan, in my opinion. That has not been a great way to go in the past.
I would like to add, it is perfectly legal to build a single-family home on an R3 zoned lot. And so the developer could do that, and the developer may do that, and we wouldn't be able to stop it. Also, I think the intention is to replat these 4 plus a portion of a 5th lot into 7 single-family R1 lots. Otherwise, they'll just be parceled out by description, which is what happens all over town. It's more orderly, at least, to have a plat and to have it follow the ordinance from that perspective.
Sarah, can we get this, I mean, do we have to piecemeal this together? Is it feasible that they could come back and give us more of a comprehensive plan for this area if they've got other changes that
I
they're
think this
considering?
is a single developer that's purchasing a group of lots. And his own personal intent is to build single-family homes here. And I don't think that it's in the owner that sold it to that person's plan to do that. So I don't know that Willow Creek Development, Inc. is interested as much as the person they're
Yeah, I
selling the
think
property
you're-
to.
I think you're exactly correct on that, but correct me if I'm wrong. I understood that this new developer was going to put sidewalk on his side. And is there not sidewalk
Sidewalk is required on the opposite side of the road, and this developer is willing to put it on his side as
Yes.
well.
So there will be sidewalk on both sides? Yeah. So just a heads up, this is coming to you in a couple of weeks. And if you folks have some questions, I would encourage you to visit with Sarah and just get an idea on what's going on and what we're really looking at as far as the sidewalks, how many lots there'll be. I think that would be a good thing. Okay? Any other questions on it?
Sarah, if they can build a house on there, what would be the advantage then? What are we missing on that, why they want to put it into R1 and an R3 district?
I think this developer just wants to do things by the book. And we don't prohibit them from purchasing, a piece of this lot and a piece of that lot. And if it's a big enough area for what they want to do, we allow it. You can look all over town and see people who've purchased the north 50 feet and they own, the south 50 feet of another lot. Together they have 100 feet. It's not a single platted lot, but it's big enough to build a single-family home on, and so they do, or for whatever purpose.
Sarah, is the minimum size of lot larger in R3 than it is in R1?
Yes, it is. You could
Okay,
get
That's the
7.
reason why they want to rezone it, to get it down to 7 then, right?
Well, yeah, they'd be going from 4 to 7.
Right, they
that's the
can't, he
purpose.
can't legally plat these into smaller lots in the R3.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that, Sarah. And like I said, I would encourage any or all of you to go and visit with Sarah and just kind of get an idea of what's going on, because I think that the new developer does have information there for you. Okay, moving on. Number 6, authorization for the mayor to sign an acceptance letter for the hazard mitigation grant for 2 new early warning sirens with a 25% local match. And Don, you are up.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight to announce that the City of Watertown and WFR has been awarded the HMPG grant, which is known as the Hazard Mitigation Preparedness Grant. The grant basically is derived from disaster declarations, and these are what we call 10% funds of whatever the disaster was declared by FEMA in the state of South Dakota. Now, essentially, these 2 sites that have been awarded were the 26th Avenue and 19th Street Northeast location. That's basically near the school bus barn. And as you can see, that's that site right here. The second site that was awarded was the 14th Avenue, 31st Street Northeast, which basically is in the nearest 14th Avenue is right here. It's just going to be basically a little bit north of that as well on 31st Street. So those are the 2 sites that have been awarded by the HMPG grant. Now, basically this grant amount was $46,253. This is a 75-25 match, and the federal share is going to be $34,690 with the city match of $11,563. We did have basically $20,000 set aside in our CIP fund for this year, 2015. So we asked that we move forward with awarding this grant by using those funds to offset the 25% match.
Okay, at this time, what I'll do, Don, is I will look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Bill, second by John. Any questions you have for Don?
Don, I presume when you applied for this grant, this is where you guys thought was the best place to place them, or how was that the area chosen?
Well, actually, I'm going to be coming before you in item 10 to discuss the direction on how we've been doing that. But yes, we've had help with First District, we've had help with the advisory committee, and also the emergency management folks have been part of that process as well.
And I think what we'll do is we'll get the council action on yours and just stay here, and we'll do number 10 while you're
Okay.
right there.
One other question I got, Don, is first off, thanks for going through all the hard work getting this, but I know in the past we've discussed replacing some of the old ones when we weren't able to get grants. Where are we at on any of those, or what's your feeling on the use of those? And, I mean, are we covered on the whole town?
That's a
or-
great question. Actually, in item 10, I was going to discuss a little bit
Okay.
more on that.
Okay, I can wait till then.
Okay, so he's got a couple more on the agenda here, and I think we'll just run through those two also. But at this time, since we do have a motion and a second on the floor, I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Don, if you want to do number 10, authorization for the fire department to apply for a hazard mitigation grant for one early warning siren, I'm sorry.
Could you leave that up there too? Yep. And I kind of pinpoint where that one's going to be. That one will be basically right, is this 11th Street here?
This is kind of up by the Jern's new addition up there by the LATI, is it not?
Yes, it's right in here, I think, in this region. Well, basically, folks, the next grant that I want to apply for is also going to be the HMPG grant. This grant is due by April 1st, so we're kind of got a short window of opportunity to ask for some monies. There's about $150,000 available for the 10% monies from the state HMPG grant fund. And we had our early advisory meeting, special meeting, and we basically touched on this a little bit as far as should we again apply for some more funds for the sirens. Well, we determined that there's basically about 3 spots for initial sirens. This isn't in the replacement process for this grant proposal. So basically, in a nutshell, we can only apply for sirens that would be needed additionally. So we've determined is the first priority is going to be at the 211th Street Northeast area, and that's in between Lake Erie Tech and the high school. We felt that that's a very highly populated area, and the committee was very adamant about the fact that there's a lot of day-to-day functions that are going on, people walking. We have the track up there. We have Lake Erie Tech students, and we felt that that was a good area. The second area is going to be in that Hofteaser addition area, the 2nd Street area up top up there. And the last area that we'd identified as a priority is the Pheasant Ridge Industrial Park area. Now, those sirens are not designated to be an indoor siren, but we do know that there's a lot of traffic that's going to be in that area that would be outside as well. So with that, I'm asking to ask for that 75-25 funds again to apply for 1 siren this time. We feel that it's probably a reach to get another grant out of these folks, but we feel it's an opportunity that exists. It would cost us about $5,600 out of contingency or some monies that we'd have to apply for in the CIP 2016 funding opportunity timeframe. So I don't know if I answered your question
Yeah.
earlier, Russ.
What I'll
or,
do, Don, is I'm
Randy.
gonna look for a motion and a second for discussion on this. Motion by Randy, second by Dan. Is there any questions that anybody has for Don?
No, it really didn't answer my question because a year or so ago, you guys were looking for money to repair some.
Oh, your question was, are we going to replace these sirens? Yes, okay. The advisory committee and the folks that are on this board as far as the sirens goes, there's 18 sirens that do need to be replaced at some point in time. You're absolutely correct. We're going to explore any other opportunities there for grants, which were limited, or start the process of planning in our CIP proposal over the next 3 to 5, 10-year range of starting to replace some of these. The parts are obsolete. We do have some available to, get us through over the next couple of years, but this is something that's probably going to have to be, expedited along fairly quickly in the CIP process.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, because
Yes.
in the past conversations about it, we're kind of sticking our neck out there and some of them are getting pretty old and we don't want to have to replace them all at one time, put it
And I'd
that
like
way.
to thank Russ and Mike for coming to our early special meeting to talk about this, the siren situation, and I think they got a lot of good input from that meeting as well.
Thank you.
How early was that? Because I've tried to get Russ at early meetings, and it does.
Well, it wasn't one of our initial meetings we were supposed to have, right, Russ?
Okay, all right. Any other questions we have for Don? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Don, while you're there, let's just buzz over to number 11, authorization for the fire department to apply for a grant through the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance Workers' Comp Program for a power cot with a 40% local match. You want to give us an information on that?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also here to apply for permission to, for a Striker Pro grant. Basically what it is, it's through the South Dakota Municipal League of Workmen's Comp Grant Fund. And essentially, we've applied for this grant before a couple times and have been awarded. These power cots are the ones that go in our ambulances. We currently have 3 of them in our fleet at this time. They're a great asset when it comes to the benefit of the safety of our staff. I'll tell you that we've had these now for about 5 years, and we have no back injuries as far as using these power cots. These power cots are automated by push button, so it lifts the patient up and down without the use of a person's back. And essentially, we've had no comp claims at this time because of that power cot. Now, basically, when it comes to the cost of it, they're very expensive. They're $16,000. Their grant will cover essentially $5,000. And basically, when we talk about the budget for this, we do not have this in our 2015 budget at this time. So essentially, we're asking for it to come out of contingency fund. But I will tell you that we did have a savings in our 212 fund for the ambulance of $25,000 for the ambulance. So I know you can't really use that money for that specific item, but it is a pretty good savings on our ambulance. And also, you know, we did look at putting in our 2015 budget, but unfortunately through the budget process, sometimes those things just don't get by. So essentially, I would just recommend that we move forward with trying to get that savings now instead of waiting till the 2016 budget year. So my
Okay.
recommendation would move forward with about a $5,000 reduction on the cost of this power cot for our new ambulance.
Thanks, Don. At this time, what I'll do is I'll look for a motion, a second for discussion purposes.
So moved.
Motion by Bill, second by John. Okay, is there any questions that you have for Don on that?
Don, so this would be the same type of one as you already have 3 of?
We have 3 of them right now, yes.
Because I can't remember where or when, it seemed to me there was some conversation at one time about a different model of this that was for to use on stairs
We have a
or something?
chair stair also that we use, that we can actually take up and down the stairs into a building. That's kind of similar, but it's a lot less money. It's not anything near the same.
Well,
This
I-
actually gets put in the ambulance as the
Yeah,
patient is-
and I guess I'm familiar with what this one looks like, but I don't remember if it was when the first one was bought, or there was some discussion, or maybe maybe we saw it at one of the municipal league things or something, but I thought there was one that was designed for helping to get up and down stairs, where kind of, I don't know if it's the right term, kind of walk down the
The
stairs more or
Stryker
less.
Chair Pro is what they call it. That's about $2,500 that we buy.
Don, just a point of clarification, the agenda item says that there's a 40% local match. Are you got your numbers reversed on what you just communicated to us?
Correct. It's a 60% match plus
Oh.
for the city. So there's only about a 40% grant that's coming from the South Dakota Municipal League, and we have to pay basically 60%.
Okay, so what's on our agenda is wrong. It's-
Correct.
okay,
That is,
all right.
that is correct. I apologize. That was a typo.
So Don, what would be the negative ramifications of not buying this thing until we do our next budget cycle?
Don, if I could maybe try to answer that question. Bruce, sorry to butt in, but I serve on the work comp board. I'm one of the trustees, and each year annually they approve this grant funding. No reason to think they wouldn't appropriate it again this coming year for grant opportunities, but we know the grant has been approved for this year, so the downside might be unlikely, but the board could vote to not continue the grant program.
If part of the justification is workers' comp claims, can we put a number to that? Does it materially affect our premiums?
I know that the folks from Claims Associates that handle the claims and process them through, that I'm satisfied they can give you empirical data from departments, you know, empirically over the years, what kind of back injuries did we see in this particular department prior to the Stryker cot? Now what kind of claims are we seeing? They're tracking that, and the work comp fund is certainly believes this is a benefit, which is why they've approved this grant program for several years, because they believe in the end it saves pool members money.
So Don, we're not trading this in, we're talking about adding another,
That's correct.
okay? to a
Shelley, how
different-
would you do the math on this? Since they got 25,000 extra from the ambulance, that goes back into your general, is that correct?
No, that goes out of the second penny sales tax. The cot would have to come out of
First
the
one.
general fund because it's equipment that can't be, so they're two different things. It would have to come out of contingency money. That 25,000 savings can't be used.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Don, when you guys presented your 2015 budget to the mayor, was this in there then and got cut out?
It was in there, but it was just part of the budget process that didn't make it, yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think it was part of the deal when the chief and I were talking, that they were looking for the new ambulance, and he didn't really feel as though he needed it at that time. You know, I don't ever remember that we sat there and struck out the cot just because.
Okay.
Well, I'm just, what are we? We're 5 weeks into our new budget year, and
Exactly,
and
year after more.
so my question is, if it was struck out, why are we why are we entertaining it again here this early into the budget year?
Yeah, I think we can
See-
definitely wait till next year. I know that the municipal is, like you said, Stanton, they come out every year with this, and we do have new ambulance coming at some particular time towards the end of the year.
September, October range,
Yeah,
yes.
and then you're only a couple months into the new year. I would wait till next year to put it in the budget.
That's entirely up
just
to the
me.
council, yep.
It's up to you guys.
No, Mayor, before we vote, I might as well then amend my motion to, because this says 40, so that it reflects the 60% that we would pay, just so we've got that clear.
Okay. And then, do you need John to second that again? Okay. All right, well, hearing all the conversation, if there's no more questions, let's go ahead and look for council action. All those in favor? This is to approve. This is to approve the purchase of the cot with a 60% plus local match
Applying for the grant. Yep.
to apply. So do you want them to apply or not?
Which the city would realize about an $11,000 cost from our contingency fund.
That's correct.
If that's approved, if you get the grant.
That is correct. Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Shelley, let's do a roll call on that.
Albertson? Bueller?
No.
Danforth?
No.
Mante's absent. Meisenheimer? Riefenberger?
Yes.
Roby?
No.
Solom?
Yes.
Tupper?
Yes.
Wilkins? Three, for, 6 against, motion fails.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Thank you, everybody.
And then just bring that, have them put it back in the budget next year. It won't, the machine will hardly be used by then. Perfect. Okay, so let's back up and we'll go to number 7. Jay, if you want to help us out on this, this is the authorization for the mayor to sign the golf professional agreement with Pearson Golf Management for 2015. As you all know, we talked about this and gave Jay the opportunity to visit with the Golf Pro and get a little extension on this. What we've decided, and if you want to take it, I don't think anything's been changed for this year.
Well, what we decided, being I'm new to the game and need to find out a little bit more about the operations out at the clubhouse and at the golf course, so we decided to maintain the same agreement for 2015 as we did for 2014. And then as the year goes on, we can review this agreement a little more and see if there's any changes that need to be made.
I don't know, there's probably gonna be some questions here, so I think what I'll do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion purposes on this. Motion by Mike, second by Bruce. Is there any questions that you wanna ask Jay?
I do. I'll ask them to whomever. I don't see in here, is this like something that was omitted, that was handed out?
No, do you want to?
Why was this given to us here? Because I don't,
There, D was changed from the original
Oh,
that
D
was
was.
in your packet. Yep, there was, the last part of it was added in there
Okay.
about the
I can
maintenance.
kinda explain that, Mike, if you'd like. The city owns the computer the computer out there, and we have the internet hookup and bank fees and all that. But what was happening is that when the computer broke down, since we really didn't work on it, and we didn't really get any benefit out of it, we felt as though it was the golf professional's responsibility to pay any service charges or any kind of maintenance agreement, and he agreed to that. So that's what that change was there.
in some of these, the one item that, as I've read this, does it say anywhere specifically in here, it talks about the revenues and who's responsible for what costs and any revenue sharing, but does it say anything in here at all about the concessions? Who runs the concessions, who gets profits? Talks about the liquor license, but it doesn't state anywhere in this contract that I read today who actually gets those profits, what the responsibilities are. And then there's a couple of questions that I'm gonna have on operational issues that have come to me over the last, certainly this last year, if not over the years, and I don't know if those are contractual items or not, so,
Let's start with the first one.
okay?
And when we start looking at the restaurant and the beer sales and things like that, you can address that very easily.
Yeah, all of that is up to the Golf Pro. He holds the malt beverage license. It's just a malt beverage. He holds that license. He gets 100% of the profit from that. Also from the food sales. He's responsible for all of the cost of goods, and he gets all of the profit from that.
Is there a reason why it's not noted in the agreement? You would think that it is an element of this, it would seem like it should be noted in there that.
Yeah, I
but
guess.
there is nothing in there that
Yeah,
says that.
I
It talks
guess-
about the issuance of a
right.
license, but it doesn't talk about,
Well, it does talk about the actual license, who is responsible for owning the license.
no, for managing the license. The conformance to the requirements of holding the license is what it does. But anyway, that's a point that I didn't think was in here. The other thing that have come up, and I don't know if these are contractual items or if they're just operations issues that need to be clarified, but I keep hearing this from people periodically, and I don't know the answer, so I'm gonna ask. One is it relates to the carts, and that is, who takes the carts out of the rental carts out of the storage area? Who puts them away each day? Whose responsibility is that? Is that the golf pros and the clubhouse, or is it the maintenance crew that's out there, or the extra staff? So whose responsibility is that? Whose responsibility is to clean the carts out after they've been used during the day when there's cans, junk, garbage in there from the previous rental? The other complaint that I hear and get asked about is the use of marshals. And I do understand in here that the city is the one that hires or pays for the marshals. That has been a big complaint, and that is we pay for the marshals, and then there's supposed to be a plan for the use of marshals and when they're there, and there's a lot of times there aren't marshals out there. And so the question is always, whose responsibility is it? Who's paying for it? Where are they? What's the plan? So those are probably operational issues that need to get addressed, Jay, but, and maybe they are or not contractually, statements that should or should not be in here. I don't know that, but
We actually got the contracts from about 4 or 5 other municipal golf courses in the state, and the last one was the Brookings municipal golf course. They didn't feel as though they needed a golf pro on their facility. They needed more of a golf manager for their facility, and I think that what Jay is saying here is that we'll go this year. Next year, I think there will be some major changes, whether we take it out for bids There might be some changes, you know, you guys will need to decide. We gotta work with our golf committee. I know Dan is on that. And just kind of say, you know, do we need a pro or do we need a manager? And I think that's something we need to look at. We also need to look at the cost revenue sharing on the beer and all that kind of stuff, you know, the hamburgers and what have you. I think that's a valid point. As far as the marshals go, we do have, I believe, $11,000 that the city has in their budget for the park and rec. That is in the golf budget, and that $11,000 does go to pay for the marshals. And they're supposed to be out there, and they're supposed to be paid by, I think Todd kind of lines them up, does he not?
Correct.
Yeah, Todd lines those up. That's something that I think absolutely has to be looked at, that if Todd is lining them up, Todd should have more responsibility with that. Where in fact, right now, I think it kind of all falls under the golf pro. He wants them here on this date and that date, and that needs to be addressed. It really does. There's a number of things that need to be addressed that on this particular contract that will be looked at next year, and it could have a big change.
Well, we need to make sure, and that if it's not in here, then there are some things that have to have some clarity put to them operationally before this year starts off, and we need to understand. Some of these things have been going on for what seems like forever, and they're frustration points for the users of our golf course, and that's what either makes or breaks their enjoyment and use of our course. So, and to me, they're pretty minor things individually, but they are a source of frustration for a lot of people. And so I think at a minimum that we need to sit down and we got to have some clarity on some of these issues. And the two people that are going to really need to clearly understand is going to be Levi and Todd. They have to understand what their requirements are. And we're going to have to probably help them with that, I think.
Okay, and I'd appreciate getting together with you sometime and discussing these issues further.
Yeah, this is a big deal for us. You know, with the golf carts, you know, I think we just spent about $160,000 or $80,000 on golf carts, and you know, there's a lot of dough out there. So, okay, I believe I have a motion and a second on the floor. At this time, I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 8, consideration of request for the funding for the Veterans Memorial in the amount of $4,250. This is an interesting thing. I just had Mark, and I think, Mike, if you want to come up and kind of visit about a little bit, that would be great. Mark Schroeder came up to my office last week. Mark is one of the gentlemen on the Veterans Memorial Committee, and they're looking at making some major changes out at the memorial. Now, in the past, this has all been dollars raised by the veterans, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, and this is just part of the money we need to complete. When we did the helicopter pad out there, and all of you know about that, and so around that helicopter pad, we want to put in some sidewalks. Yeah, you can see it there, and then over towards South Lake Drive, we got a plan going for another sign. It's a smaller sign, but what it does is when you come past on South Lake Drive, draws attention to our memorial. And so, and it kind of, it's designed to be like an arrow to show them where the entrance is to turn and come into the entrance to the Vets Memorial. And we're trying to raise some money because we're getting short. And we're trying to raise money to put those sidewalks in and to put that sign up. So, and the sign will look almost like the front sign, but on a smaller version and a reverse order instead of it being black with a white or stainless steel sign on it. It'll have a black Veterans Memorial sign, and then it'll have a white wall and black cap and stuff. And so it's kind of an elaborate deal, and then the sidewalks and the landscaping to finish up around that helicopter. The sidewalks are going to go out and around so that people can walk out there and take pictures of it and look at it from a little distance out instead of right up underneath of it. And so,
Okay, what I'm going to do is I will look for a motion in a second for discussion purposes. Motion by Randy, second by, was it Mike? Bill? Okay, is there Any questions that you have for Mike on this?
Use your
Yeah,
mic.
we're hoping that they do. We haven't went through all that with the city, but, we're with the park. But because the helicopter kind of gets buried in there especially when the leaves are all foliaged out on the trees. So we're looking at opening it up a little bit when people go by, so they see that. That helicopter was quite a project to put that big helicopter on top of that little post.
I thought you landed it there, didn't you, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I've
I-
been to a number of events out there, and people just love it. So I don't know, how many people would you say that go out there every year and look at the memorial?
Oh, I have no idea, but when I'm out there working, they're coming and going constantly, you know. And they bring their kids out and they play on the slides and the swings and stuff that we put in over to the side for the families so they can enjoy the whole park, you know. And so it's working out really well. We've got room for names. We sell the names that go on the blocks, and so each block kind of pays for itself. So it's this is just to raise money to build, and so.
So Mike, you have raised all the money for that, the veterans? Nobody else has ever been encouraged or invited to participate in the fundraising?
We've did all the fundraising, and I say we, it's the Veterans Memorial Committee. Have went around and they've visited with all types of businesses. If you go out there, you see their names
Yeah,
out there.
I have.
And they've donated, and that's what we were doing again. And of course, when we started it before, Mark, I think, went up to the Watertown Community Foundation, and they've promised matching funds up to this amount, and so we're trying to do that because that's what we need for a base bid on this part of the work that we're doing.
There are people out asking for money right now, and then,
Trying to locate enough money so we can do this project, and then we've got some other things that we'd like to do, but they're still in the works, you know,
so the 4,200 is the maximum that you have to raise?
to do this project, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a match with the community.
It's a match
foundation.
with the community foundation, so.
Mike, when would the work be done?
When?
Yeah.
I tried to get at it, some of it this fall, but it'll be done right away in the spring. Because I've got to do the sidewalks and stuff around there so we can do the landscaping and get that in. We wanted to plant grass right away, and that's partially why we need the sidewalks, because if we plant grass, you'll have mud and stuff around there. People can't get out and take a look at the helicopter without walking in fresh black dirt, so.
Well, the only concern I have is where we're at in our budget year and the use of reserve dollars. Is this something, how problematic would it be, Mike, if we were to plan, because we'll, here in the next 60 days, 90 days, we'll be starting our 2016 budgeting planning. How problematic would it be if this project were to wait and be planned for within the 2016 budget?
Oh, I see no problem with it. We're out raising money anyway, so, and that's how, I'm sure Mark came up here thinking, okay, you know, it's the city's park, it's their Veterans Memorial, it's not ours, we're just a committee. And so I'm sure that's why he brought it up, to see if, okay, if the city will donate some, fine, we'll raise the money, because we're out working on it anyway, and so.
Well, it's not that I'm not for the project. I've been out there, and you and I have talked about this. It's very, very impressive out there, and it's been very well done, and it is very well received by the community, by the numbers of people that are out there. But I'd like to go back to it, and that I would like to do things on as much as we can on a more planned basis, budget-wise, whenever we can. And if that's possible with this, that's what I would prefer we do. But.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. That's, you know, but as far as what this does for the community, this is a real draw for the community. I'll tell you, when I'm out there working and stuff, there's people in there from all over the United States that are out there looking at this, and there's people that have been there that have told other people, and all of a sudden you get their relation are coming, and they're stopping there like coming through on vacation and stuff. So And we don't have a register for them to register, you just gotta happen to be there when they're there, and so.
Mike, what would happen if we would table this for 2 months, and then you would come back to us and say, you know what? We were able to go out, we're out fundraising, you've said that. You come back here in 2 months, you say, you know what? Really didn't need 4,200, what we really need is 1,700 now so we can move forward, because I agree, it's a great draw to the community, and it's our veterans, you know, and I'm not sure the veterans should be out doing all these projects when they're out working for us like they do either, so.
And that's fine, because 2 months won't be spring yet. I mean, it's be getting closer, but.
That's what I mean, so you
yeah,
come back
and so-
in 1st of April
Yeah,
meeting.
that's no problem, and we may not have to come back at all. This is pretty good advertising I'm getting right now.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. We're gonna give you an opportunity. Where would they send the money, Mike?
Oh, that's Ordine Bierman. So, thanks you.
I think, Dan, that's a good idea, I think. And if, Mike, that works for you, I think we could do that.
Yep, no, that's fine.
Perfect.
I
So
would
then we
make
will
that
need to-
motion, Mayor, to table this, just so we keep it flowing, so it doesn't go away, so Mike knows we can come back.
Instead of tabling, can you just move it to another meeting?
Oh, I would make a
So that we
motion
could
move
just
it to the
otherwise-
April- the first meeting in April, that Mike could come back and address us again.
So that's a substitute motion
Substitute motion.
to move to the first meeting in April?
In April. I'll need a second on that. Second by Mike. Okay, any other questions we have for Mike? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, number 9, consideration of bids received for the 2015 alley improvement and cemetery road projects. And Sarah, if you want to jump on that one for us.
Sure. The alley improvements, that's an assessment project, and I brought the location of the alley up on the screen. It's the alley between 7th and 8th Street East and between 2nd and 3rd Avenue South. It's a few blocks from Garfield School. And the owners adjacent to this property are paying for this. They've requested that we do it. The bids came in just slightly under the engineer's estimate, so we're hoping that you'll approve them. We recommend approval. The
Should we do
second.
this in 2? Should we just get that?
We can do
in
it
one?
in one.
Okay.
And the other part of it is the cemetery. There are 2 roads out at the cemetery that are within the cemetery, and I can bring that up as well. Road down at the bottom and by this structure. This is also within the budget and below the engineer's estimate a little bit, so also recommend approval of that.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. What I'll do right now is look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike. Second by Bill. Any questions you have for Sarah?
Sarah, the schedule we're looking at here has got 2 numbers. Is one of them supposed to be the estimate, and one is, because it doesn't say that, it just, there's 2 items.
Up at the top, the very top, it says engineer's estimate and McLaughlin and Schultz. So,
Oh, okay, it scrolled off the screen, that's all. Okay, very good. That's what I was assuming by what you said, but I
Yeah.
couldn't see that, sorry.
Is the cemetery, are those roads there today currently gravel?
yes,
Okay, so that's gonna be a new roadway, okay.
or their paths, I don't know if they're, might be dirt.
On the alley
This
project, was
part,
that,
probably not a lot of gravel. What's that?
on the alley project, was that 100% with the residents?
I don't recall what the percentage was
Okay.
when it passed.
That would be assessed to them, or they'd have
Yes.
the opportunity to pay for it at the time it's done and then not have it assessed? That their option?
Okay, is there any other questions for Sarah? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, number 12, authorization to advertise for bids for utility tractor and aerator for the golf course. This is something that was in the budget, it was budgeted, and we would like to have that authorization to get out there and try to get some bids. So I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Don, second by Dan. Are there any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Under old business, we moved that, asked to sign the Lomar application for the Willow Creek. Sarah, if you want to just touch base on that.
I will. Roby Creek runs right through the center of town, down basically between Highway 81 and 11th Street East. And this was a new floodway for us in 2009. We fought it a little bit. We didn't think it was right. They pulled a whole lot of homes that had been there for a long time and never had seen water into floodway, which is very restrictive. The floodway is the most restrictive part of the floodplain. You can fill in the fringes of the floodplain, but you can't fill in the floodway. And so we wanted to look for a way to reduce that floodway to minimize the negative impact on our community. So we hired SEH consultants to help us do that. And this has been a project we've been working on for several years. And meanwhile, we have some modifications that have been made in the floodway which haven't been reflected and haven't really taken care of the process the way that we're supposed to. And so we want to incorporate the changes. There's some culverts here and there that didn't get put in to the modeling. And so we're drawing all these changes in together. It includes the modifications that were made on the road leading to the new middle school, 11th Street. And we did fill in that floodway, and we put culverts under the road. And so this corrects the map for that situation. And also, we're asking for the floodway to be taken away from 15th Street, which leads up toward the community center, so that we can build a road there. Because with a floodway, we can't fill there, we can't put a road there until that's modified. So this is all in a great big binder application form to FEMA. We're asking them to write a letter of map revision, LOMR. We call them a LOMAR. And if the LOMAR is approved, then the floodplain will be remapped, and we'll be able to move forward with our project. So we want to do this as quickly as possible. I'm asking for authorization for the mayor to sign the LOMAR application to FEMA.
Okay, so now you all got that down on Lomars and Clomars again. So I will look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Randy, second by Bill. Is there any questions you have for Sarah on this?
Sarah, if this has all kind of been redone, what other impact did this obviously is one that we need to get done, but is there any major change? They reduced it quite a bit in some of the other areas, or?
Not as much as we'd hoped, but there are some reductions, so we'll be able to pull some people out of the floodway. A lot of them will still be in the floodplain, but the difference is if you're in the floodway and you have a home in the floodway, you cannot make a substantial improvement to that home. If it's in the floodplain, you have to elevate or flood-proof, that sort of thing. In the floodway, no, you can't even, if it burns down, you can't rebuild it, that sort of thing.
Sarah, do you have an estimate how many homes would be affected by that? Any idea?
I think they're around 70, but I'm not positive about that. We're hoping to get out of the floodway
And
that are currently
that would
in.
be just floodway affected?
Right. And this map will also take a troublesome AO zone that we have, which is between Roby Creek and the Big Sioux River. It's very difficult to, for people to get permits through that zone. We're having that changed. to an AE zone. The green area, the Big Sioux River floodplain is here, Roby Creek is here, and between them is this big green area called an AO zone, and we're converting that to an AE zone, which makes it easier for people to understand and easier to get a permit to build in there or reconstruct or sell.
One of the things we wanted to do, Sarah, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that this is gonna cost about $8,000, am I correct? That you have in
The
your budget?
application is, the price for the application from FEMA is going up February 20th, significantly. And so we want to get in
From
before
to
they
what?
raise the rates. I think it's, should have brought it with me. I think it's going up to $20,000 and now it's 8 or 10, something like that.
So it is substantial.
There's some savings to getting this going, but we need to get this going as soon as possible anyway, so we can
Sarah, I got a question for you. Is all this pink that you showed us in this thing here, is that all included in one Lomar, including the 15th
Yes,
Street up there?
everything in the Roby Creek
Is all being looked at,
is all being looked at.
including that little protrusion up at where we want to put
Right.
15th Street, the
Yes.
future 15th Street. Is it an all or nothing thing, or
No.
can they take pieces of it and say yes, no, 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 yes?
They can take pieces of it, and they'll hold, what happens once we submit this application form is FEMA enters into a public process, and they'll be holding public hearings. This is a significant enough change that they won't just write a letter of map revision like we get all the time. They'll actually change the maps. They call it a paper change, so we'll get new maps. So that will show the actual location of the floodplain and the floodway and the elevations.
Is it
What's
possible
the
that-
process? What's the
Go ahead, Mike.
process timeframe?
Could take years, but the fastest possible time is probably 9 months.
Is it
We're
possible
hoping-
it could go the other way, where they could say, now we need to?
It won't get worse,
Okay.
if that's what you mean.
Well, that's what,
They,
that's,
we've
yeah, sorry, we're gonna add another
We've
300.
remodeled it, and we're saying, okay, our new model's better than your old model. And they won't say, no, we're gonna do a third model. They just won't accept our new one.
Well, Sarah, my concern is are we putting our need, because that 15th Street is really time sensitive for us, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Are we putting that at risk by having it embedded with all of this,
We can't do 15th Street without this.
without the whole thing?
Right.
Couldn't be at that.
We were
portion,
already
couldn't-
in the process of doing this, and
Right.
so it's lucky, actually, that we're able to tack that on, because it's a long process.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions?
Through that study, this is basically an as-is, just remapping, was there found anything that could have been done to mitigate this and make it less of an issue, something that city should be looking at? Changes, or-
We've done so much in this watershed with detention ponds and utilizing all of the vacant land. I mean, there's some minor things, some areas that's maybe not maximized, but if you look in Roby Creek, by the time we got a floodplain for it, the town was built. I mean, we put Roby Creek underwater around the turn of the century, 1900, and it's just gone. I mean, people don't even see the water. It flows in a big pipe under the ground. They didn't even know they were in a creek bed. And FEMA came in the year 2005 and started poking around and gathering data. In 2007, I think they were talking to us and gave us a preliminary map. And then they gave us the final map in 2009, is when it became effective. But all these areas of town, there's not a whole lot you can do. But we have had flood problems on Roby Creek in recent history, like since the 1950s, up by the high school. And that's why the city put in a series of detention ponds. We have a detention pond just north of 10th Avenue. We have a detention pond behind the Lutheran High School. We have a whole series of them in Northridge. And all of those were put in, and they did mitigate flooding downstream. Yeah, yeah, quite a bit. So we've been working very hard to manage the floodplain in our community. And we were shocked, actually, when we got the flood map in 2009, and pretty much had to accept it if we want to be part of the flood insurance program. But we've never felt right about it and didn't feel like, you know, it was accurate. And so that's why we hired SEH, to see if we couldn't minimize the impact. And we're going to be able to do that. It'll be a benefit to
Okay.
the
Well,
community.
thanks, Sarah. We appreciate it. Let's go ahead and move on this. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, is there any other old business that you folks need to discuss? Any new business? Any liaison reports that would like to share?
I do have one. Boys and Girls Club just held their 42nd annual meeting. I was asked to give an award to a very special person over there, a Lifetime Achievement Award, he was one of the very original board members, one of the very original people that helped get the Boys and Girls, well, back then it was the Boys Club, but Courtney Livingston's been on their board for 42 years, so just it was totally a privilege to be able to give him that award, and what an achievement. Great individual in our community, so.
It's amazing how much Courtney does around in the community on so many different things.
That's why I wanted to kind of
He's quite a
publicly
guy. Thanks,
recognize him, and
Courtney.
like I say, it
Look
was,
at the camera and say, thanks, Courtney.
thanks, Courtney.
There you go.
Great job.
Works for me. All right, any other liaison reports? Hearing none, executive session. I do have a need to go into executive session. It is on contract negotiations. I really do expect nothing, any action taken on this. So I do need a motion and a second to go into executive. And Bruce, Russ, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? We're in executive session.